Imagine stepping into a pitch black room, sealing the door completely shut, and achieving this, I don't know, this boundless, almost terrifying freedom.
Right, which is not usually how we think about freedom.
Exactly. Usually when we think about the concept of escape or, taking a massive journey, we picture literal physical movement.
Yeah, passports, packed bags, all that.
Right. Overcoming gravity, breaking through atmospheric barriers with just sheer deafening force. But what if the most expansive voyage you could ever take requires absolutely zero physical movement?
Just sitting in the dark.
Yeah, exactly.
Phew.
What if the ultimate vehicle for space travel is just, well, sitting perfectly still in the dark? So welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
We are doing something a little bit different today for you guys. Instead of like a massive scientific data set or some huge historical biography, our entire mission today is to unpack a single, highly evocative source.
Just one lyric sheet.
Just one. Specifically, the lyrics for a song called Right by the Moon by the artist Barré.
And it is honestly remarkable how much thematic architecture is packed into these relatively sparse lines. I mean, we're looking at a profound literary and really psychological blueprint today.
Yeah.
This isn't just some catchy tune. It's practically a manual for escapism. It's this deep exploration of the chaotic machinery of the human mind and, a defense of absolute deliberate isolation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when you first look at this lyric sheet, it seems, I don't know, simple enough, right? Almost like a nursery rhyme in its cadence.
It really does have that simple rhythm.
But it holds an entire philosophical universe if you actually look at the mechanics of what the narrator is doing. I mean, it starts right out of the gate with this fascinating contradiction. The very first lines are, and I'm quoting here, "Whenever I want to leave my room and go cruising by a silver moon, I sit alone in my velvet dark."
That paradox right there, that sets the parameters for the entire narrative.
Right.
The narrator explicitly states their desire to, leave their room, but the mechanism for leaving involves actively choosing to remain inside it.
Yeah, just firmly anchored in place.
Exactly. They sit alone. They're basically shutting down the physical body to activate the mind.
And the sensory metaphor they use here is what really catches my attention. Like, they don't just sit in the dark. They sit in their velvet dark.
But that specific word choice is huge.
It is. Because think about how darkness is usually portrayed in literature, or even just in, like, our own primal evolutionary psychology. Darkness is a void.
It's an absence.
Right. It's a lack of information. It's something to be feared, something empty or cold or threatening, basically because it's where the unknown predators hide.
But by adding that one word, velvet, that void is just immediately transformed into something tactile.
Yeah, you can almost feel it.
Exactly. Velvet is a fabric that absorbs light, it dampens ambient sound, and it feels, rich and heavy against the skin. The darkness isn't this empty abyss they're trapped in anymore. It's a protective, carefully curated blanket.
It's intentional.
Very much so.
Mm.
It changes the environment from a state of sensory deprivation to a state of sensory substitution.
Okay, let's look at the mechanism behind that, because it actually reminds me a lot of the appeal of modern sensory deprivation tanks.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Like, you pay good money to go float in pitch black, silent, body temperature salt water. And the goal isn't just to relax.
No, it's to cut off the input.
Exactly. The goal is to starve the brain of external input, because the human brain is this incredibly active prediction machine. When you cut off the visual and auditory data from the outside world, the brain doesn't just, shut off and go to sleep.
Right. It panics a bit and starts making its own input.
Yes, it starts generating its own internal stimuli to fill that vacuum. So you actively engineer your environment. You deliberately neutralize the physical world so your internal projector can turn on.
Which logically dictates exactly what happens next in the lyric sheet, because you'd assume that creating this quiet, velvet environment would lead to serene, peaceful thoughts.
Like floating among the stars or something.
Exactly, a calm galaxy. But the very next line throws this jarring shift in momentum at us. It says, "and then go flying from a Luna park."
Yeah, that part threw me.
Right. The internal projector doesn't show a calm galaxy at all. It shows a wildly chaotic, kinetic amusement park. The lyrics just start throwing these dizzying images at us, like, I see the merry-go-round and round, the big wheel, and you're up and down.
Okay, I have to push back on the narrator's logic here, or at least, admit some confusion on my part. Why a Luna Park?
It seems counterintuitive.
Totally. An amusement park is, by definition, an overwhelming nightmare of sensory overload.
Oh, absolutely.
It's loud, it's crowded with people, there are flashing lights, it's chaotic. It is literally the direct, polar opposite of a solitary, quiet, velvet dark.
It is.
So is this song implying that the human mind, like once it's left entirely to its own devices and stripped of all external distractions, just naturally defaults to a noisy, manic carnival?
Well, consider the psychological baseline of a really active mind. When we remove external tasks, answering emails, navigating traffic, talking to coworkers, the mind often rebounds with a massive surge of disorganized energy.
Like when you try to sleep and suddenly remember everything you've ever done wrong.
Exactly that. And what's fascinating here is how the narrator chooses to navigate that internal chaos. They don't fight it.
Right, they just go with it.
Yeah, they don't try to force themselves into some state of Zen meditation or forcefully quiet the mind. They actively ride the chaos. And the pinnacle of this amusement park metaphor is the line, "A ghostly sound soaring in your head. A ghost train ride into grateful death."
Rightful death. I mean, wow, that is an incredibly heavy phrase to just casually drop in the middle of a carnival ride.
It is dark.
It sounds terminal, honestly.
Well, the mechanism of a ghost train is really crucial to understanding what kind of death this actually is. Because a ghost train, a classic haunted house ride, it operates on a fixed track.
Right, you're just strapped in.
Exactly. You sit in a little cart, you have absolutely zero steering wheel, and you have no control over where the cart goes or what terrifying things pop out of the dark at you.
So you just have to let it happen.
You have to surrender to the momentum entirely. In the context of this deep internal journey, this grateful death represents a psychological concept known as ego death.
Okay, meaning the dissolution of the self.
Exactly.
Like the part of you that worries about your mortgage or the part of you that feels embarrassed about something you said like 5 years ago.
The part of you that has a name and an address.
Yeah, the daily identity stuff.
Precisely the dissolution of those boundaries. Ego death is this profound loss of subjective self-identity. So by entering this ride into grateful death, the narrator is actually letting go of their earthly anxieties and their physical identity.
They're just giving up the wheel.
Willingly riding the preset tracks of their own chaotic subconscious to the very end of the line. The ego has to die, gratefully, so the narrator can transcend that noisy Luna Park and ascend to a pure cosmic space.
But to maintain that internal freedom, to let the ego truly dissolve on that ghost train without just violently snapping back to reality, the narrator realizes they have to completely sever their physical tethers.
They've cut the cord.
Right. Because you can't ascend to the cosmos if you are still worrying about what someone thinks of you. Which drives us directly into the middle stanzas of the song, where the narrator explicitly and honestly, pretty bluntly, rejects human connection.
The refrains here are almost hostile in their repetition. We get these lines, "No woman, good looking," and "No woman, show woman," followed by this devastatingly cold line, "Can make me warm or cry."
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because this goes so far beyond like a standard heartbreak anthem.
Oh, this isn't a breakup song.
Not at all. It's not a lyric about being dumped and just swearing off dating. It's a statement of total psychological vaccination against the physical world.
That's a good way to put it.
Can make me warm or cry. Like, really think about that. They're declaring that no human being possesses the ability to inject affection or inflict pain upon them anymore.
Because the internal fantasy has become so overwhelmingly potent, that real-world physical and emotional connections are just obsolete.
They just don't matter.
Right. Another person cannot make them warm because the velvet dark is already perfectly insulated, and another person cannot make them cry because the ego that feels the sting of rejection, well, it already died on the ghost train.
It's already gone.
But look at the line that immediately follows this rejection. The narrator says, "I know I must be right."
Yeah, there is zero hesitation in that statement.
None.
Zero regret.
And that certainty is rooted in the narrator's understanding of physical limitations. Notice the other major rejection they make in this exact same section of the song. They say, "No one can travel time." Human relationships, physical bodies, the real world, They are all fundamentally bound by the inescapable laws of earthly physics. They are bound by linear time. Bodies age, passions cool, relationships decay.
But the mind isn't bound by linear time.
Exactly.
Like in your mind, you can travel time instantaneously. You can jump backward to a vivid, warm childhood memory and then instantly fly forward to construct a completely imagined future 1,000 years from now.
You're not stuck.
So why would you settle for the limitations of a physical romance that is, trapped in a decaying linear timeline when you could just retreat into your own consciousness and experience eternity?
And viewing the rejection of human connection through that lens changes the entire equation.
It really does.
This deliberate isolation isn't defensive anymore. It's not a trauma response where they are just hiding away from a cruel world. It is highly offensive. It's an aggressive pursuit of boundlessness.
It makes me think of the narrator as like a kind of sci-fi monk.
A sci-fi monk. I like that.
Yeah, like an ascetic. Because throughout history, monks and mystics have consciously taken vows to detach from earthly, temporal desires. They renounce romance, wealth, socializing, sometimes even speaking entirely.
Just completely cutting off the physical world.
And they do this not because they hate the world, but because they believe severing those physical tethers is the actual mathematical requirement to explore the divine. And the narrator's doing the exact same thing, turning their pitch-black bedroom into this high-tech ashram so they can explore the cosmos inside their own head.
And that pursuit of the divine, that brings us right to the climax of the narrative. By successfully leaving the physical world behind and surviving the ego death of the ghost train, the narrator actually evolves.
They level up.
They do. They ascend to a state of absolute, undeniable control. The lyrics shift from just observation to active command. They say, "Fly me on velvet ships of sounds, a fantasy, a fun to share around I rule the heavens on the way."
Velvet ships of sounds. I mean, we started with the velvet dark, which was just the empty physical setting, right?
Yeah.
A silent room. But now we have velvet ships of sounds.
It's a huge shift.
That phrasing is honestly the skeleton key to the whole song. It reveals that audio, that music itself, is the literal vehicle facilitating this mental space travel.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the music is the architectural framework of the mind's journey here. If the velvet dark is the vacuum of space, the music isn't just a passive spaceship. It is the propulsion system.
It's the fuel.
Exactly. It provides the literal momentum the brain needs to keep moving forward so it doesn't just collapse back in on its own anxiety. The sound waves give physical dimension to the empty space of the mind.
And look at the massive shift in agency, too. Earlier, they were just watching a merry-go-round or, sitting passively in a ghost train cart, letting the tracks dictate the entire ride.
They were just a passenger.
Right. But once they board these velvet ships of sounds, they grab the steering wheel, they actively declare, "I rule the heavens on the way."
They've achieved this sort of localized omnipotence. Within the boundaries of the velvet dark, fueled by the velvet ships of sound, they literally dictate the rules of gravity.
Wow.
They control the flow of time, they orchestrate the emotional weather. They aren't just a tourist cruising by the silver moon anymore. They own the territory. The lyrics explicitly state, "There is a special place I like to play, right by the moon."
Think about how you listening right now, use music or podcasts or a specific playlist to survive your day. Think about the actual mechanics of why you put headphones on.
Oh, it's such a universal experience.
It really is. When you're standing in a crowded subway or when the external world strips away your agency and makes you feel, I don't know, tiny, stressed, and powerless, you engineer your environment.
You shut it out.
You blast a specific song. You construct your own velvet ship of sounds.
You are erecting an auditory fortress where you are back in control. It is a profoundly human coping mechanism, but it's elevated in these lyrics to this mythic cosmic scale.
Yeah, they make it sound so epic.
The music allows the narrator to reclaim absolute sovereignty over their mental state, elevating them far above the mundane, gravity-bound reality of, whatever room their physical body just happens to be sitting in.
And the end of the song really hammers that sense of suspended sovereignty home. The lyrics just keep looping, repeating over and over, right by the moon, right by the moon. In my velvet dark, it's dark, quiet. Right by the moon, right by the moon.
It stops being a standard pop song chorus at that point.
Yeah, it turns into a hypnotic chant.
It functions as an incantation. They are verbally anchoring themselves in that celestial space. They've found their utopia, basically. A place entirely free from the friction of other people, free from the decay of linear time, built entirely out of raw imagination and audio waves.
It's perfectly insulated.
And as the lyrics fade out with that endless repetition, the listener is left with the distinct impression that the narrator is simply going to stay there, suspended indefinitely in that perfect, quiet, velvet darkness.
Well, we've gone on quite the journey ourselves today without ever actually leaving our chairs.
We really have.
We've traced this incredible thematic arc through Barré's lyrics. We started in a dark, solitary physical room, engineering a state of sensory deprivation.
The velvet dark.
Right. Then we moved through the loud, kinetic, chaotic default mode of the isolated mind, allowing the ego to die on that terrifying ghost train.
The grateful death.
Yes. We saw the cold, conscious rejection of earthly romance and linear time to just completely sever all physical tethers. And finally, we witnessed this ascension to a godlike omnipotence ruling the heavens right by the moon, and all of it was propelled by the architectural power of music.
It really is a masterful, multi-layered depiction of the mechanics of escapism.
So what does this all mean? I think ultimately it forces us to recognize the absolute boundless power of human imagination. It demonstrates that true freedom isn't necessarily about, where your physical body is allowed to go or how much money you have to travel the globe. True freedom is about the intricate, infinite universes you can construct inside your own head, especially when you have the right soundtrack acting as your propulsion system.
That is a deeply powerful takeaway. But the mechanics of this journey raise an inescapable question, I think. One that kind of flips the entire fantasy on its head if we actually follow the text's own internal logic to the very end.
Okay, lay it on me. I want to hear the catch.
Well, we've established that the narrator absolutely requires these velvet ships of sounds to transport them to this godlike state, right?
Music is the fuel.
Exactly. Music is the fuel for their omnipotence. But what happens in the silence?
Oh, wow.
Think about the exact fraction of a second the song ends. When that final note fades out, the audio waves stop and the velvet ship loses its propulsion engine.
The fuel runs out.
Does that luxurious cosmic velvet dark instantly collapse? Does it revert in just a millisecond back into just a mundane, lonely, ordinary bedroom? And if it does, is the traveler violently, immediately trapped back in the physical flow of time, just alone in the dark?